So, I understand what you're saying, and that's, but really for peace, you need two sides.
Right.
And that really is what I'm seeing from my side.
Okay, and we will not have, and I don't know if we have time, but we have time, good, all right. So
I've given you a podium.
Okay, all right,
Don't be reluctant to stand on it.
Okay, no problem. Okay, the reason why we one of the reasons why we don't have a side today, because today we could have a side, right? Possibly. We couldn't have a side when there was America and Russia, and they were the two superpowers, because the Russians could support the Palestinians and the radical Arabs, and the Americans would support Israel, and they would just fight, right? Today, the Arab world looks to the superpowers, and the superpowers today are mostly America, but also the European Union, and somewhat China and Russia, right? They're coming up too. So they look to the U.S. for support. Now, what happened a year ago? Do you remember? President Obama went to Egypt. He didn't go to Israel. He didn't step foot in Israel, right? He went to all the Arab countries, and he didn't step foot in Israel. Okay, so we were offended. That's not the problem. What's the problem? The problem is that by going to Egypt, by supplying Egypt with more advanced weaponry, helicopters, F-16s, Apache helicopters, then they have, I brought you the graph, but then they have for over 10 years more modern weapons than we have for a long, long time. He sent a clear message to the Arab world. Israel and the U.S. no longer have a special relationship. And what the Israeli press said was, our fear, and then after this they didn't talk about it a lot, because they didn't want to object to Egypt getting weapons, right? Because it's an ally. But what they said is that President Bush had always said, you know, the buck stops here. You need to be nice, make nice with Israel, or you don't get our support, right? And President Obama stopped saying, you have to make nice with Israel. And a year later, after Obama says, stop saying, you have to make nice to Israel, look what happens, right? We are under increasing attack, both physically and through the press.
Well, there's no question that the perception of what side of the fence America sits on is going to have an awful lot of difference, or make a lot of difference, in terms of emboldening one group
Absolutely.
versus another.
Absolutely.
But you know, to me, one of the major problems that the United States has is its dependence on Arab oil.
Yes.
And I have been speaking about this throughout the campaign and throughout the last 8 months, is that when it comes to the Middle East, our hands are tied. We are, in essence, a prisoner of Arab oil. Because any decision that we make has to be colored by, are they going to turn off the faucet if I do this? Are they going to turn off the spigot if I say that?
Yes.
And when you have that kind of a hold on, when one country has that kind of hold on another, the beggar country, which is us, okay, has no latitude to make a rational decision. Our decisions in the Middle East cannot be rational.
Right. We absolutely, I totally agree with you. We have to become oil independent.
No, Arab oil.
Oil yes.
Independent.
I would also like to see us oil independent,
I
but
can't agree. I can't agree. We are a planet that is based on carbon.
But let me tell you that it's not just the U.S. I mean, the reason why Israel is in the predicament itself is that the Arab world has had this leverage over the entire rest of the world for, 50 years.
Exactly.
And that's one of the reasons why Israel has always faced an uphill battle, is because, the fuel economy, that's how our economy runs.
Well, you can't have an industrialized economy without energy.
Yeah, and it's ironic, because in 2,000 years ago when the Romans kicked us out, we had olive oil, right? And olive oil was what...
So it comes down to oil.
It all comes down to oil, exactly.
I like olives. So how does the Israeli press view us?
Okay, so
Go ahead, you can
Okay,
say it.
Okay, all right. First of all, I'll tell you.
Please do.
Right now, they're saying, what, are they crazy? Right? Because, the coverage, I'll tell you what, NPR did not report that the Israeli soldiers were attacked prior to responding, right? NPR didn't report it. They said the footage was fuzzy. So it was just an attack on Israel, right, for defending itself.
Well, that's why I showed that the Netanyahu quote, because that really brings up the discussion of the current incident.
Yes, yes.
And that there was footage
Yeah.
showing that the IDF,
Yes,
was attacked first.
yes.
And it was incontrovertible evidence. I mean,
Absolutely.
there was no question.
And the
I mean,
BBC posted it, but NPR didn't.
right. Well, also.
So the first thing that they, of course, is they're crazy. But what's going on? The world's gone crazy because of this, the coverage, and the ordinary. See, the ordinary Israeli really likes. They emulate the United States, right? And this is true not only in Israel. I think this is true in a lot of developing countries. Because the United States has so many really neat things, right? When we say in Hebrew, something's great, what do we say? America. That's our slang, right? We say, what is it? Oh, it's like America, right?
Yeah.
So there's this emulation. Now, within the Arab countries, I think they had the same thing, where everything, this wonderful Western culture, and then there was the resentment, right? And that, I think, fueled the rise of radical Islam. At least that's how I studied it. That's what we talked about when I studied it. However, in Israel, what happens is that you have this emulation. At the same time, you have this real confusion, and I have that confusion too, is how is it that the United States, the Western press, knows so little about what's going on?